Hi everyone, I'm Alex and this is Tank Tested. I don't know if you guys can hear me, so I'll just take a minute and make sure that everything is working. I'm not really used to doing live streams, but it feels like in times like this where we're all stuck at home, it'd be valuable to join you guys this way. So let's see if this is actually working. Can you guys hear me? You guys can. Cool. All right, so sitting in front of me here is, you'd think I would have looked up how big this tank is. I think it's around 10 gallons. And I've got it set up on what is normally a motorized Lazy Susan, but this will allow me to scape from one side and then rotate and show you guys what I'm doing and then rotate back. So hopefully this will be a nice positive experience for everyone. This tank is a rimless tank. I've got aquascaping supplies all around me. I'm lucky that I've got a fair amount of stuff. So over the next, who knows how long, I'm going to try to do one of these live streams at least once a week, where we will scape something, and I will talk with you guys, answer any questions, anything that comes to mind. So with that, before I get started, how is everyone feeling? Does anyone have any things that they want to bring up right off the bat? And I will go peek over at my laptop because I'm alone, so I can't even get someone else to consult with me. Cool. So in front of me, I've got kind of a limited supply of materials, but I'm going to focus on just Cirrostone for today's aquascape. I just took these rocks from my garden. That's where I store them. So they've got some bugs on them. I washed them down to get rid of the dirt, but I've got a nice little supply of stones here. You can tell which ones were inside, the ones that are dry, versus which ones were outside, the ones that were wet. I've also got a couple of different options for sticks. Well, I've got two options for sticks. One, I've got all of these, you'd think I'd know what they are. I don't. These lovely pieces of wood, I've been using them for various tanks off and on. They're slowly getting more and more aged. It's lovely. I've got maybe a dozen of them. And then I've got this big chunk of spider wood. Oh gosh. So as I'm sure you can immediately tell, this piece of wood is a little bit too big for this tank. But aside from the 150 gallon, which is behind us, this is the biggest tank that I've got right now. I actually broke down all of my aquariums before I set up my 150 gallon tank. And if you haven't seen that video, if you don't know what I'm talking about, I think 2 videos ago, I showed the setting up of my 150 gallon. I haven't scaped it yet. And that's why we're not going to look at it. But given that this is the biggest aquarium that I've still got, this is probably the wood that I'm going to work with. Now, normally it's a messy process to get a piece of wood to fit in a tank, especially a piece of wood that's this oversized. So I may abandon it based purely on the fact that some of these sticks may be harder to break than I would like. And being live, I can't imagine a more embarrassing thing than being defeated by a piece of wood. And that's kind of what I've set up for myself. So we're going to start with this. We're going to start with trying to get this stick down to a reasonable size that actually, or this piece of spider wood down to a reasonable size. Now, before I do that, just want to check the chat, make sure I haven't missed anything terribly important. Let's see. So there are lots of lovely people here. LRB, Aquatics, JH Aquatics. You guys have the same kind of name. It's nice to see both of you in the chat. There are a lot of lovely people here, but those are 2 people that I've met in person that I see right off the bat that also have wonderful channels that you should check out as we're kind of stuck all in this together. All right, so you'd think I would have had pruning shears, but I don't. And there's actually a reason why I don't have pruning shears. Whenever possible, you try not to break your your aquascaping material with a blade because it leaves an unnatural break. Nature doesn't use blades, so we try not to as well. Now, this piece of wood came to me with 2 saw marks here and here. And before this live stream started, I tried to dirty these up a little bit and make them look a little bit more natural. So, and I'll show you what I mean in just a second. What I did was I took my hand drill with, I'm gonna say like a 3/8 inch bit, so a pretty beefy bit. And I just started drilling away at the tips of these cut marks. The goal there is to try to create kind of a rotted away look. It's not a technique that I invented. It's a technique that I'm copying, but it's a really, really cool technique. So I want to show you, if I can, right up against the camera. Let's see if we can get there. Sorry, I'm trying to. So you see those 2 breaks, how they no longer look quite so so artificial. I've tried to really beat them up so they look like it's just wood that's slowly rotting away. So now I've got to figure out how I get it into this tank. So now I'm regretting not doing a little bit of prep work before this live stream. So I've got something to chat about. Does anyone have any questions, any things that they wanna poke me with, knowing that while there are lots of really, really knowledgeable aquarium YouTube channels, I am a generalist. I am a documentary filmmaker by trade. I listen to people talk and I internalize that level. So I'm like a nice top level person. I also am a creative. So I really love the art of aquascaping, and I've been fish keeping for 20 years, but I am by no means the expert that many of the people out there that write in wonderful aquascaping or aquarist magazines are, and there are certainly YouTubers that are smarter than I. But would a vise and some pliers work better than shears? Yeah, I totally agree. FT Steve or F Tank Steve. A vise and pliers would work really, really well. Anything that gives you the leverage that you can actually just kind of snap away at it. So I know that I want this tank or this piece of wood to kind of rise up in the corner like that. So knowing that, you know, that's obviously not going to fit. I think we can safely say that this stick has got to go. So we'll start with that one and we'll see how bad this is. Oh, it's going to be real bad. See, I did not do any prep work. All right, so I'm slowly destroying my nice little piece of wood, but that's kind of the price of doing business. You've got to destroy the piece to make something. All right. It's still really hard to break a piece of wood because you can't unbreak it. I may have to go off camera to snap some of this stuff so that I can stamp around in a way that's not wildly embarrassing. Now, unfortunately, I've just started this break and I think it's still way too high up on the piece of wood. It's gonna make it really hard to break it later. All right, so we're starting to get there. Feeling better about this. Gotta break this piece. I'm gonna have to step off camera for this, I think. Okay. All right, we're getting smaller, we're getting more accessible. So I'm okay with having one of these pieces sticking up above the water line. That doesn't bother me so much. What does bother me is how, like, right up to the edges this feels. Like, this feels a little bit oversized for the tank. Certainly at the angle that it's at, it doesn't feel quite right. So how would it feel better? Would it feel better? It would feel better at a shallower angle, which means all of these pieces have got to break. All right. So, how is everyone doing with the quarantine? I want to keep this kind of as positive as we can. We all need a break, but I do hope that if you have the ability to, you are staying away from people. The future of many of our more vulnerable people really relies on us being responsible and not going out and having a grand old time right now. I would love to go hang out with my parents. I'd love to go hang out with my friends. I'd like to go on dates, but for now, I have relegated myself to my house because I think that is the responsible thing to do. I hope that everyone that's watching joins in on that because self-quarantining, flattening the curve only works if enough of us actually do it. Now, I understand there are lots of people that need to go to work to keep our society up and running. And there are lots of people that really do need the money, and this is a really painful time. But that's my like one little 2 cents of preaching is please, if you can, stay home. It'll make this all easier for all of us, as frustrating and painful as it is right now. Okay. So you see this piece of wood right here? This feels like the problem. Because right now, you know, there's just no way to make this not feel like it's just jammed in there with that piece right there. The problem is how am I going to break it? I'm going to struggle for a second, and then I'm going to have to go put on shoes and stamp on it. So how about putting the big end flat upside down? Sure, I will give that a shot. Thinking like that. Alternatively, so I will let you guys see this for a second. Let me know what you think about that. So that's one option. So option A, let's take an informal poll. Option A, this way. Option B, option B, option B. And then option C, let's not make it 3. Option C would be what I was struggling to do earlier, which is kind of have this feel like a root system with a couple of rotted tree trunks sticking out from the water. So how are we feeling? I'll give you guys like 30 seconds to catch up and tell me A, B, or C, and then we will go from there. Okay, so lots of A's. So you're saying I'm wrong. That's fine. Which one was A? It literally could be anything. I think this was option A. Does that feel like that was option A? So this is the one that we feel okay about. Okay. I don't know if I agree with you guys. I'm going to look at it for a second. So hello to everyone else that's joined. My friend Tara is in this chat. We met while we were down in Brazil on a Project Piaba trip, which was a lovely experience. In the next few weeks, we'll be getting more videos, or I'll be making videos that you guys can see about some of the things that we saw down there. It was a really amazing experience. Project Piaba is a wonderful organization that focuses on the fishermen and fisherwomen in the Rio Negro region of Brazil who are catching fish for the aquarium trade. Now, as a conservationist, I was really, really skeptical of that. It made me feel a little bit uncomfortable with the idea of let's exploit the natural ecosystem. But having gone down there and seen how the fish are caught and the scale of the operation, which frankly is not that large, I'm really convinced that it's a very viable path forward for this area. The area gets about 60% of their income from the aquarium trade, which means that the people that live there, although it is relatively sparsely populated, especially compared to, you know, any major metro area in the United States, uh, that population gets their income from the aquarium trade, which means that those people have an incentive to protect the ecosystem and keep the fish population stable and healthy. It's a really, really cool program, Project Piaba is. If you Google them, you'll find information about them. You'll see a lot more about them as I continue to make videos on this channel. So hello, but thank you for providing me with that lovely ability to go on a tangent. So lots of votes. Oh gosh. I think A and B are the overwhelming majority here. So yeah, I'll show my original orientation again, mainly because Tiffany asked me to, and I haven't quite let my dream die yet. I'm not convinced that this is gonna work, but I think, gosh, I wish I could break this little stick so this could go a little bit more vertical, but essentially something like that was what I was envisioning initially. So that's option C, but the world feels that option A is the right choice. Gosh, do I go with you guys or do I ignore you completely? I know this is a compelling live stream. Me sitting here looking at a stick in a glass box, but that's where we're at. If I lift this up so that I can see. I'm gonna look at option A. This is a real tortured process. This is just for me now. Okay, so looking at A, I do see why people respond to it. There's a lot of really interesting stuff going on here. My counter is that it's very flat looking, and I am planning on putting rocks in the scape. And if I put rocks in the scape, how are they going to interact with this piece of wood? Are they going to interact with this piece of wood? Let's try option C. That feel like the right way to go? Yeah, let's do that. That was not option C. That was not even option B. This is a whole new weird option. Gosh, this is a really weird option. This is a bad option. I'm not going to even show it to you. Okay, I'll go with A. I'll listen to the people. You've defeated me. That means that all of my drilling to make those two little holes look natural is for nothing. You guys know that, right? Just want you to come to terms with that reality. Go your way originally. Gosh, this is a real roller coaster. I don't know what to do. If only there was someone here, but sadly we're in quarantine, so I have no person around me to encourage me to do the right thing. LRB, what should I do? I'm putting you all the burden on you with this. Sure hope you're still watching, because if you're not, we're going to be waiting here a long time. At the end of the day, it's your tank. That's not helpful. I want an actual answer. The one that looks good, trust us. See, Alex, just use the branches. Okay. While I do that, while I think, there are a couple of other things that I've got to help me build out this scape. So for one, I've got a lovely little container of sand. So not a lot of sand, enough to cover the bottom of the surface of this tank with maybe a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch of sand. So not a bunch. I've also got a lovely jar of aqua soil. This is repurposed, so it's not fresh, but it should be okay. I haven't used it too much, so and I'm not planning on putting anything really energy intensive in this tank. And then I've also got these bags. These bags are a wonderful aquascaping secret. This is basically just a mesh bag filled with crushed lava rock. And while it looks not great right now, what it does provide is a nice stable base that you can build up your aquascape with. And it means that you don't have to use the more expensive rocks in a way that they won't be seen, and you're not making a pile of aqua soil. Instead, you're focusing on building up your mass with something that will eventually be camouflaged. So this is a really wonderful secret weapon. I'm going to talk a lot more about this as I build the 150 gallon, but for now, we'll use it in this tank. Okay. Do I want you to go grab Two Beer Dominic? I do want you to grab Two Beer Dominic, although Dominic also went on the trip with us, and he's a wonderful person. I adore him. I don't know that he has any expertise in aquascaping, but that's okay. And I apologize to all the people that have no idea what I'm talking about. Hopefully one day you'll have a little bit more context. All right. Has anyone given me a really convincing argument? No. So push it further to my left. Over there. Sorry, this is going to be a fun dead air time. Does anyone have any questions so that I can answer those and stall for more time as I think? I know, this is compelling content. But building an Aquascape takes a couple of hours, at least in my experience. So this is part of the process. It's not exciting, and this is why a lot of people don't show this part, because there's a lot of sitting around just looking and thinking, which is very relaxing, but not compelling content. Okay, I'm convinced. I'm going to go with option A. It feels like the right thing to do, if for no other reason than the prospect of snapping that stick seems really stressful to me. So I've committed. We're going with option A. So we're going to go with this orientation for our sticks. I do have some spare bits now that I can jam in there and make it feel a little bit more natural, which is great. So now that we've decided that this is the orientation we're going to go with, I need to come up with what is the hardscape that's surrounding it. Because I legitimately had no plan when we started. And if I had any plan, I have less now than I did when we started. So, all right. Let's look at what rocks I've got. Oh, I want to show you guys something exciting. So this rock, show it nice and up to the camera. This rock is elephant stone, and I have about 250 pounds of it, and that's what I'll be using in my 150 gallon. So as I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do in the 150, I do at least know what hardscape materials I'm using. So compare this stone to a dry piece of Cirrus stone. They look quite different. This is a much smoother stone, but it's got a lot of really detailed texture. This is much chunkier. I don't know. I've literally never worked with this stone before. It should be an interesting experience. So, why not use a material you're not familiar with when you're scaping a giant aquarium? Okay. So, a thing to think about when you're aquascaping is how much space to leave between your hardscape and the front of the glass. There are a couple of different options here. So one, if I want to have a really beautiful section of sand up at the front, a large, expanse of sand, large, having the aquascape really far back could provide that. It could provide a little bit of depth. But counterintuitively, pushing the aquascape up close to the glass gives you a lot more space to work with in the back, which actually creates more depth for you to work with. So a lot of aquascapers that I really, really respect, especially for competition aquascapes that are photographed, their aquascapes literally go up to a couple of millimeters from the front of the glass, which means that, a fish can't swim back and forth necessarily at the front at all places, but it does allow you to give a huge amount of depth. So, if I wanted to, I could set up my scape like that. So I'm getting a huge amount of depth and I'm playing with that. This piece of wood doesn't really complement that. It doesn't really play with that. And since I don't have a huge amount of spider wood, got the pieces that I broke off, that's it. I've got to figure out an orientation and a placement that works with just this one piece. Now, I'm not going to plant this tank tonight. This is already taking its sweet time. How long have I been live? I've been live for a half hour, and I put a stick in a tank. Gosh, I'm the best. Oh no, this is going to take forever. Indecision. I could just do this live stream forever. I could do one tank and take 10 weeks to have it finished. What do I want this tank to look like? So in terms of planting this tank, that's where I'm going to approach this. I don't know what plants I'm going to actually use to plant this tank yet. I don't have a huge amount of plants on hand. I've got a couple. I've got a couple plants total. That's all I got. So figuring out what to do with this, I want this to be a hardscape heavy aquascape, knowing that I have a minimal amount of plants, and given COVID-19, I don't know when I will get plants again. So hardscape heavy tank, probably going to have a nice sand substrate going all the way around here. I'm creating this natural cave structure here with these rocks. So maybe I want to embrace that and actually create a cave structure with rocks. So, I'm continuing the cave underneath of the sticks. I don't know if you can see any of that. You probably can't. But basically creating a really dark cave so that the sand kind of disappears underneath the depths of my rock or of my stick. Something like that could be interesting. I kind of like that. I like that concept. This is a very strange way of building an aquascape. Definitely doing it backwards, starting with like a little detail at the bottom rather than what my lines are. But I like this concept. This could be nice for a lot of different types of fish that enjoy having a place to hide. Gosh, I really like this concept. Okay, so I'm going to commit to that. Before I do, I want to show you this piece of rock. So unfortunately, I'm using the part that's exposed. That's okay. So this piece of rock, I'm going to hold it up to the camera. Gosh, sorry, I'm on such a delay. I was just waiting for myself to hold up the rock. So this piece of rock is actually two rocks. And I've used what I believe is called pond stuff. I should have re-Googled it and made sure that I'm correct about this. It's an expanding foam that's designed to hold up against water. And what I've done is I've bonded these two rocks together, and you can see they're held together. It's a really, really great technique of building rocks out of smaller rocks. I mean, you can see right here, this really does look like it's one piece of rock. It doesn't look like it's two pieces of rock glued together. But I have some exposed pond stuff there. I need to deal with that. So I'm going to disappear off camera for a second. I'm going to cut out all this excess that I wasn't worried about in my previous scape because it was behind the rock. So I'll be back in just a second. I'll continue to talk as I cut off screen. So I'll see you in a second. All right. Now, the real question is where, oh, where did I put my X-Acto knife? Well, I found it. That was a nice, fast little trip to the kitchen. So I'm going to use my X-Acto knife, hopefully not cut myself. And cut out all of my excess foam. Now, this is going to be in the cave, a cave that we've just established is happening. So it should be pretty well hidden. It's not something that I'm too worried about having some gross exposed edges because it's going to be pretty dark down there. And unless you're really, really kneeling, really looking real close, you're not going to see it anyway. So should be okay. All right. Yeah, that's great. I feel really good about this. All right. Now, let's load in a little rock cave. Now, I do need to figure out how I'm going to secure this cave. That's going to be tough because piling stuff onto it is not going to help support it. So how do I support it? I don't know. All right. I'm going to use this piece of rock to create a little bit of a little cliff face. Now, if you really, really love tank tested, which I know you do, you might recognize this piece of rock. This was a piece of rock from another aquascape that I had set up maybe a year and a half ago. It was kind of an Iwagumi style aquascape that I was using guapa grass, Monte Carlo, and Marsilia hirasuta as my 3 plants in that tank, as well as some moss. I think it was probably Java moss. As much as I would have liked it to be something else, I'm pretty sure it was just Java moss. So obviously that tank has been broken down, so now I've got this rock nice and reclaimed. Okay. So if I do something like that, what am I getting myself? I don't know. What am I getting myself? I'm getting nice scratched up glass is what I'm getting. Okay. That's a very straight horizontal line. I don't feel super great about that. So I need to find something to support it. Do I want to use something like this? Yeah, I'm feeling better about this over time, in spite of the fact that this is kind of a mess. So something like that feels okay. My cave is destroyed, so we've got to make that work. All right. I need to support my cave in some way as well. So I'll use this piece of stone it's not that exciting a piece of wood, or stone, excuse me. Yeah. Yeah, that's feeling okay. I say that as I continue to tinker. All right. Oh dear. That okay? Feels okay. I'm gonna load up some of my handy dandy lava rock bags, and I've ruined everything. All right, I'm gonna have to stand up. There's no coming back from it. Put some rock there. I'm just trying to make my cave feel at home. Like it's not gonna fully collapse the second I pick it up or I move anything. All right. Gotta figure out a way to support this cave. So in my experience, this is kind of a universal experience for me of there's always one little precarious thing that you've got to balance. And you spend like 2/3 of your scaping time just getting that one rock to be where it needs to be so that you can move forward. I don't know that that's a sign of a good scaper, but it's certainly a sign of my process. Yeah, that's starting to feel okay. Yeah, okay. Some part of this is done now. Well, done in quotes. Now let's move on to this piece of wood, or this piece of stone rather. How are we looking? Too flat. We're looking too flat. All right, that doesn't look natural. Maybe if I rotate it. Yeah, I'm feeling okay about that. So what do you all think of this so far? I'll give you a few seconds to look at it. And then we'll go from there. It's pretty dark. It's pretty hard to see what's going on there. Dominic is here. Oh, that's so exciting. Hi, Dominic. Apologies to everyone else. Dominic is the best. He's my favorite. Amazing Scape, scratches and scratching. I just can't. Yeah, no, the scratching of the glass, it's going to be a fun process, right? By the time this Scape is done, you won't be able to see through the glass. All right. So I've got the front of my Scape pretty close to done. And we'll go from there. This is Will from Guapa. What plants are you looking for? What plants am I looking for? I don't know. That's a good question. So I'm thinking I'm going to use some guapa grass. Speaking of guapa, guapa is my local plant club. It's the Greater Washington Aquatic Plant Association. It's great if you are in the DC area in 6 months once this whole thing hopefully blows over. we will continue to have meetings. It'll be great. We can all hang out. We can talk about plants. We can trade plants. Guapa grass is a type of grass that was discovered by one of our members. And it's one of my favorite plants. It's such a wonderful hair grass. It grows to be around a foot long. And it's a really simple plant. And it's one of my favorites. Yeah, me and my guapa grass. I love guapa grass. How can I get that Murphy grass? I live in Annapolis. It's also called Murphy grass. But I don't know. Come to Guapa once we start meeting again. We can get you some guapa grass. But call it guapa grass. That's what all the cool kids are doing. So in aquascaping, one thing that you want to try to do is have your large rock faces closer to the front of the tank, and then you're more detailed in the back. At least that's how I go about it. The idea being basically your tiny little pieces of stone that have really intricate little patterns make a really, really good background stone because it creates the illusion of depth. So if you have two rock faces, let's say you're going with these two. Now, this one's still wet, this one's dry, so they look very different. But if you look at them, this one feels very chunky, it feels not too detailed, whereas this one feels quite detailed. So if you put this behind the other one, your eye will start to think, gosh, this must be even farther away because those stones are so similar. This stone must have the same scale of patterning, so it's hiding in the back. That's one approach. I've also seen people argue the opposite, that the more detail you want to get that in the front so it catches people's eye. But I think that if you have the option, having your more detailed stuff a little bit further back is nice and strong. The only issue is that if you have really undetailed rock, if you just have flat rocks, you don't want to just have all your interesting stuff in the back. So the question is, what do I do to make this feel more complete? I'm going to try piling up some lava rock and see what happens when I add a second stone back here. What do we think of that? Now, obviously there's a problem here. There's a whole bunch of exposed lava rock bags. So there's a couple of options to cover that up. One, we get a nice carpeting plant there and we cover this in aqua soil, or you can even fill these bags with aqua soil and you can plant stuff directly into the bags. That works as well. I don't have access to cups of tissue culture right now though, so I don't have the ability to plant a carpeting plant. So I can fill in some of these holes and then hope that I can cover up all the rest of it with some epiphyte, maybe Bulbitis or Busphalandra or Anubias or even Java fern. I have some I have some Bus that I've been farming for years. I no longer buy Bus because it is largely collected from the wild, but I do have a small collection of Busphalandra that I've held on to. So that might go into this tank. I don't know that I have quite enough to cover up such a large expanse though. So I'll think about the other side as well. What do I want back here? I probably want some rock formation to hint that there's a lot more going on back there. But because it's behind all this stick matter, I don't need it to be quite as detailed. It can be something that's kind of a throwaway rock, a rock that I would normally never really prominently feature. these bags, what a great thing. And they're really simple and they're really cheap. I think I bought 50 of these or 50 of the mesh bags empty for like $10. And then I bought maybe 200 pounds of lava rock, crushed lava rock, for another 150 or so. So I ended up with 50 of these bags for less than probably like around $120, somewhere in that range. I don't know if that math adds up, but that's about, maybe I bought 100 of them. It's so many. It's an incredible thing. It's so much cheaper than almost any other way that you can fill your tank up. So I really love it. All right. I don't hate that. Greetings from Indonesia. Hello. It's nice to see you in this stream. There's not enough room for fish to swim around. That's not true. There's plenty of room for fish to swim around. Yeah, I mean, this tank is not, I think this tank is a 10-gallon. I'm going to say this is a 10-gallon tank. The reality is this tank probably is going to end up holding 5-ish gallons of water. So it's not a tank that can be heavily stocked for sure. This is a tank that can have one small school of nano fish. Ideally not a school or a shoal, because if you have a fish that needs a schooling behavior, you never can get enough of them in a tank this size. But maybe a small fish like a Dario, which is a really tiny fish with the males generally have a habitat of around, I want to say, 1 square foot. That's their territory that they guard. So you could have a male and 2 females in this tank, or a male and 3 females, and you'd be probably okay in a tank this size. And those fish, they grow to be an inch long. So I think that would be pretty doable. Maybe move the dark gray rock to the bottom of the tank. So one thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to cover the bottom of the tank with sand once we're done. And the reason why I'm waiting until we're done is I want a very thin layer. I want no more than probably an 1/8 inch at the very bottom of this tank. You don't really need that much substrate or that much sand to create the look that you're going for. It really only ends up taking up space, and especially in a rimless tank, one that doesn't have the black trim, there's no reason to fill any more than the bare minimum, because then you're just building an ugly little wall of sand at the front. So that's what I'm thinking for that. So I do need a couple more rocks in the foreground to kind of break it up a little bit, but I'm not planning on putting anything too major down there. So knowing that, yeah, I mean, putting that little rock there has made a world of difference to kind of close off that section. Also put something down here to kind of create a little bit of a platform for this wood to be sitting on, even though it's not in any way sitting on that piece of rock. It's grounding the wood a little bit more. So we're getting there, actually. We're kind of getting towards the end of having an aquascape. I'll put in the substrate and then we'll be done, although I'm going to add a couple more rocks. Good morning from India. It's nice to see you from India. Good night. Good night, good fight, everyone. Just keep talking, it helps me fall asleep. All right, I will help you fall asleep. I'm nothing if not tedious. How's the huge tank coming? The huge tank is coming. I previously showed this, but I'll show it again. So I bought a huge amount of what is called elephant stone, this aquascaping rock. Now, unfortunately, I didn't get a whole bunch of big pieces. I got a bunch of pieces that are about this size. Now, the 150-gallon tank is 5 feet by 2 feet by 2 feet. So scaping with stones this size in a tank that large is going to be its own kind of challenge. So we will solve it as we go. It'll be an interesting process. the other thing is that because the elephant stone is so smooth, it has such rounded edges, gluing two pieces together is a lot more challenging than with your cirrus stone. I mean, this is another piece that I've glued together with my pool or with my pond stuff. And you can barely tell that these two rocks are attached together. When you're attaching two smooth stones that have rounded edges, you're going to see those edges a lot more. So I'm legitimately concerned as to how I'm going to make that happen. But we'll figure it out. I mean, I'm stuck at home all day now, so aside from the time that I've got to work, because for now at least I'm lucky enough to still have a job. Um, Aside from that, I kind of got all day, every day, and nothing else going on, as we all do. So I need something to fill this little corner. This just doesn't feel right. Ooh, do I like that? So a problem that I'm seeing as I look at this tank is it feels like too much of a sheer wall. It feels like what I built, it doesn't feel natural to me. It feels the wood does not belong is the issue. The wood would never grow in that orientation. So basically, what I've created is I've built an eroded riverbank effectively, and I like it. I like uh, the more natural style where you're not trying to create a diorama. You're trying to create a literal little cube of nature. But knowing that that's what I'm doing, the stick doesn't jive with that. I don't know how to solve that right now, though. I've also got this piece of bag that's kind of sticking out, bothering me. So I've got to hide it somehow. And I'm worried that in the process of hiding it, I'm going to create too much mass on this side of the tank. But we'll see. Oh gosh, I'm going to scratch the hell out of this tank. So that's not going to fit. That is not the solution to my problem. I'm running out of solutions to my problem, though. I guess I can snap this rock. Yeah, all right. This is no longer one rock. This is now two rocks. Huh. That feels better all of a sudden. It doesn't feel perfect, but it feels better. So there's also a hollow here. Now, this hollow could be filled with plants, and it would disappear and it'd feel nice. The question is, do I have enough plants to make that happen? And the answer is, I don't know. I've also still got some pond stuff on this, so I'm going to try to remove as much of it as I can. Okay. All right. Alex is strong. He could snap rocks. I can snap rocks as long as they're glued together with foam. That's the key. If I've pre-broken them and then lightly glue them back together, I can snap rocks. All right, I'm going to add this rock somewhere up in the foreground. The question is where? Yeah, I don't hate it. Okay, so what do you guys think? I'm going to wait for like 30 seconds and just catch up on comments. And everyone, please let me know if there's anything that I'm missing that you'd like to see me do with this before I move on to the next step. Good Go back to C. Yeah, no, I'll go right back to option C. Thank you. Thank you for that. That's helpful. Um, Can I get that Murphy grass? I live in Annapolis. All right, I read that part. Um, Not feeling natural. I mean, you're not wrong, but that's okay. Um, Once it's planted, I think it will actually feel pretty natural. Move the dark gray rock to the bottom of the tank. Not sure which dark gray rock you're talking about. Are you talking about a rock that's in this tank? All these rocks are actually the same color. It's just some of them are wet. Um, the large white rock in the back is nah. I disagree, mainly because it's actually not that color. It's the same color as all the other rocks. It's just not wet. So it won't be quite as much of an eyesore. You were right. A was not the look you were going for. You're right. It was not the look I was going for, but that's okay. Um, I'm not using multiple types of rock. I'm using one type of rock. It's just some of them are a little bit wet because they were in my garden. I promise you, this is all the same rock. Um, Clearly, I need to reinforce that, like put a banner on my screen that says that because I need to remind everyone, not your fault. You just didn't have that context. Need some bulk on the right side. So the right side being this side. So one of the things that I'm debating is where do the plants go? Because the plants will actually make up a lot of mass. You don't want your hardscape to be the entire mass of the aquarium. Imagine if I plant Java fern here. The Java fern will come up to the surface of the tank. Um, so that will fill up this whole section. If I put Java fern over here, that'll fill up that whole section. If I put any stems anywhere, that'll fill up that section. So ultimately, you don't necessarily want your hardscape to go quite as high as you might initially think. Um, Concerns that I have are something has to go right here. That something could be a carpeting plant once I get it. Maybe I can get some Monte Carlo um, to kind of flow over this rock so that it kind of creates a nice little edge or a nice little backdrop that kind of suggests that there's more happening back towards the back of the tank. But I actually feel pretty okay about this scape, believe it or not. It's not what I was hoping for. It's not what I was going for, but I don't hate it. And once it's planted, I think it'll be really lovely. So I'm going to start by filling up a couple of crevices with aqua soil. So I'll be back. I forgot a mason jar, and then we'll go from there. Oh, also, I have a little teeny container filled with rock fragments. Now, these little rock fragments might seem like a tiny little detail, but those little details are going to actually make so much of the scape come alive. It'll provide a lot of scale. It'll basically look like little pieces of this flooded riverbed have eroded and broken off, and you can see as the stream is pushing these little rocks up against the edge of the wall. So I'll be back with a mason jar. Give me 1 minute. Okay. Just realized this is a terrible idea and this is not going to work. I'll be back in a second, see if I've got anything better. All right. I'm not on camera, but you can hear my voice. What am I looking for? Do I have anything smaller? I don't really. So I guess a mason jar is a ha. Aha. I've got just the thing. All right. I'm coming back. All right. I found a little tiny planter, a plastic cup that can bend. That's exactly what I got. I got a little plastic planter. It does have holes in the bottom because it's a planter, but that'll be okay. This is going to take a while. Not that the rest of this aquascape didn't take a while. How long are we running? Hey, it's only been an hour. That's not bad. So I'm just filling in the back section with maybe an inch of aqua soil so that I can plant something back there. Now I'm not going to fill this tank up tonight. What I am going to do is move it to its permanent location after this live stream is over, and then I'm going to think on what plants can I aquascape with? What plants do I have access to? And kind of go from there. I mean, I know what plants I have access to. I have a little bit of guapa grass that has a little bit too much hair algae going on in it. And then I've got some boost. I've got a tiger lotus, which would be cool in here, but I don't know that I have room. I might take a little trimming of it and see what I can do. Maybe there's something that I can make with it. And then I gotta think, like, at some point, I'm hoping I get some Java moss. Well, some Java moss, maybe some Java fern, and I can start building out a little bit more of a scape. But it could be months before that happens. It's really impossible to know, given where we are in the world, whether or not I'll be able to get access to anything that I don't already have in my house. And unfortunately, a few months ago, I got rid of almost everything. In December, I got rid of everything that I had, except for a couple of little bits that I was a little bit too attached to get rid of, and a couple of fish that I didn't want to get rid of. Had I known, I would not have gotten rid of anything. But hindsight is always 2020, and there's really nothing I could have done. I mean, who would have ever predicted something like this would happen? At least not quite as quickly as it has. So, feeling okay about this. Now, there's a lot of aqua soil that's falling down behind. I may need to off camera fill in all of these. Oh no, dumped stuff on the floor. I may need to off camera fill it up a little bit more with aqua soil. Sorry, so I'm missing the chats here. We want soil, yay. Living vicariously through Alex right now. Haven't had any free friends to work on Escape, and I miss it. That looks so fun. It is fun. I mean, the thing is, aquascaping doesn't need to be nearly as expensive as we make it. Obviously, right now we're in very specific and special times, but under normal circumstances, when pet shops sell, aquariums at the like $1 a gallon price point, you can get an aquarium for a really, really inexpensive rate. You can also get a small little filter for a small nano aquarium for, less than $20. And then when it comes to the aquascaping supplies, you don't have to go with commercially available aquascaping materials. The rocks in your garden, the rocks in a stream by your house, all of those would work perfectly fine. It's it's unlikely that you don't live someplace that doesn't have both rocks and sand. And given that, you can build an aquascape with local materials that are way, way cheaper. And if you don't want to collect things from the wild, which is totally understandable, um, big home improvement stores will sell really, really cheap rock, mainly for like paving driveways or for lining flower beds. And it does take a little bit more work, but you can absolutely find some really, really beautiful stones, and then you just have to be a little bit more creative. Now, for the plants, plants can be a little bit more expensive, but that's the advantage of finding a local club and getting plants that way. The other thing is that the amount of plants you need really just comes down to your patience. If you get a little trimming of something, yeah, it's going to take a few months for you to get something up and running, but it's totally, totally possible to just keep propagating a few little trimmings from someone else's aquarium. And now I don't know where you live. You might live in a rural area that there's no one on Craigslist, but I've certainly seen people locally that are selling their plant trimmings for very, very cheap. Now, limits what types of plants you can get, but ultimately, it is easier than I think people expect to get into aquascaping. Not to say that it's, not somewhat costly. It is. I don't mean to suggest that it's something that anyone can do. But it does not have to be the ordeal that a lot of scapers make it out to be. It doesn't have to be something where a scape is going to cost $1,000. It's just a matter of setting your own expectations and setting your own goals. Maybe your goal is to say, I'm going to do something that feels very native, that feels very natural to the world that I live in. And that means I'm going to use all native materials. Okay, so I've added in aqua soil. Now I'm going to go get a paintbrush and I'm going to brush all the aqua soil back from the edges, and I'm going to add sand, and then we are approaching done. Okay, so a little paintbrush that someone might use for, doing housework, but I am using for aquascaping, and I feel okay about that. All right. So you could certainly make this more professional, make sure that all of the little aquascaping substrate, oh no, is out of the way, but I don't feel like doing that right now, and it's a challenge. So we're gonna stick it with that. Hi, Katie. Katie also went on our trip to the Rio Negro, and it's nice to see her here as well. So, what did I do with my mason jar? Does anyone see the mason jar? I don't see it on a live stream. So where did I put it? I must have left it in the kitchen. I'll be back. Okay, so got my mason jar, and I've got what is pool filter sand. So this costs, I want to say, around $20 for 50 pounds of sand. And when you add the sand, uh, one thought is to have it match the stone to make it feel more natural. But when you actually go to a stream and you look at what's in the base of the stream, the floor of the stream, it's often actually a different material than the stone that's making up the edge of the stream. And that's because the stone that is making up the substrate is usually more easily eroded and is coming from upstream, whereas the stone that's still there, by the fact that it's still there, is tougher and it is less likely to erode. So it's actually quite natural to have mismatched stone. Maybe not as mismatched as this, but it's not totally out of the question. And when you add that little layer, it makes a world of difference to make your scape kind of come alive. All right, let's see how I'm doing. I've added too much sand. That's okay. I can brush it away. Handy dandy paintbrush. Make it all go away. All the back nooks and crevices. So as you're about to see, as I was talking about earlier, having just a very, very thin layer of sand is really all you need. And the nice thing is, one of the tricks of making an aquascape look fresh and clean is to gravel or suck up all of the sand and then replace it with a new layer. So if you're only using 3 or 4 little mason jars of sand for an aquarium, you can suck up all that sand and replace it really easily. It's almost impossible to clean sand and make it look like new. So rather than try, um, aquascapers and a lot of aquariums will actually siphon off all of the dirty sand, and they'll either clean it or they'll actually dispose of it, um, and then just replace it with new sand. And it works really well. And it makes your aquascape look really, really fresh and really, really clean. The other thing that you always want to consider is you want to try to keep the sand at the base of your aquascape, or at the very front of the aquascape, as level as possible. It doesn't matter quite as much as you go farther back from the front, but if you can keep that front line nice and clean, you'll end up with a much more professional looking aquarium. Now, obviously at home, you're going to have fish, they're going to move stuff around, you're going to have current, it's going to move stuff around. But if you're wondering, how do I get that look that looks like all of the beautiful aquascapes I see online? Well, one of the keys is to embrace kind of a paintbrush approach of painting the sand where you want it and only using fresh sand. So that's my hot trick for aquascaping at the end of this video. All right. I'm going to add a little bit more sand back here before I show you what's going on. Okay. Yeah, I'll add a little bit more sand right there. I know you're not privy to my interior monologue, so you have no idea what I'm reacting to. But I had a thought, then I had another thought, and I decided which of those thoughts I wanted to go with. All right, a little bit more. Yeah, that feels okay. Okay. So I think I have a finished aquascape here. It's certainly not what I set out to make, but I feel pretty okay about it. I'm going to think long and hard about whether or not I want to actually plant this tank. I don't have that many aquariums, and I do want to keep doing live streams every week, let's say, at the very least once a week with all of you. So I've got to decide whether or not this is really a tank that I want to commit to. Right now, I kind of like it. It's pretty okay. Yeah, that's my level of optimism. Yeah, I don't hate it. I like it. I like it a lot. I'm gonna maybe bring you guys a little bit closer to the tank and let you see what it looks like. Maybe you can see all the fun scratches in my glass. Gosh, they're great. What a nice job I've done maintaining this aquarium. And then I think that we are approaching the end of this video. Unfortunately, my tank is now a little bit off balance. Okay, all right. I'll give you a little tour of this tank. We'll see it up close for the very first time, and then I will say goodbye to all of you. Wait, hold on. One last thing. I know, I'm just not gonna let you guys go. Maybe I wanna add a little something somewhere. A little bit more rock to kind of suggest that there's fragments of rock kind of peeling off and piling up. Yeah, that feels good. I like that. Now the question is, do I want to add any rock fragment? It's not necessary in every scape, so I'm gonna toss them in and see if I like them. You know, I don't love it. So if I don't love it, why create more work for myself? I'm going to take these little fragments out and I'll save them for another week. We'll do another scape with them. Do I want to use this last little piece of stone? Maybe I do. I can tell you week 2's Aquascape is going to be tougher because I'm burning through my material here. Yeah, it feels okay. All right. Let's take an up close look. So I want to thank you guys all for watching this. Don't leave yet. I will show you the close-up. Thank you all so much for spending some time with me. I hope you're all doing well as we're all under quarantine. Please continue to stay inside and self-isolate. Super important for keeping our population healthy. I know it sucks. It super sucks. But thank you all for staying inside with me tonight, at least. All right, let's take an up-close look. All right. Got to turn up my brightness so I can see what's going on this. So I feel okay about this. I mean, it's not the best, but it's not the worst either. It feels okay. Got a little cave system back there. Hopefully some future fish will really enjoy that little spot. Over here, right there, I've got a great place for some sort of stem plant or maybe some Java fern. Right here, probably pile up a bunch of Anubias or Bucephalandra. Same thing here. Something will go back here. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe that's where I put my guapa grass, or maybe I plant my guapa grass up here and just trim it so that it stays nice and short. Not sure what I'm going to do, but I feel pretty good about this. So with that, I hope you all have a lovely evening and stay safe and healthy. Thanks so much for watching.